It's clear that Congress is not authorizing these actions. These actions expose our service members to physical harm, but as we made the case the last time we brought up one of these war powers resolution, it also exposes these service members to legal harm, to legal exposure, and now we see that so graphically with what's taken place. But yes, Lawrence, one way or another, one time or another, we will get to the bottom of this. I am concerned in the near term that the president saying he's closing off or trying to close off airspace above Venezuela, his more leaning into statements that we're going to strike land. This would be, another potential opportunity for Trump to push this issue of a potential war crime off the front and center and bring about a conflict with Venezuela to focus the country's attention on that instead. I'm not saying that's what he will do, but nevertheless, we have seen this president engage in reckless conduct as a way of distracting from his other problems.
Pete Hegseth has always been a political burden for Donald Trump. From the start of this administration, it became clear that when you build a Fox News-style cabinet, you end up with Fox News-style outcomes and constant Fox News-style leaks. But things haven't stopped there for Pete Hegseth. He's gone from texting about war plans to outright engaging in war crimes. It's no surprise. He's one of the most incompetent individuals ever placed in a presidential cabinet. And now, Donald Trump is prepared to cut him loose, especially after a newly leaked video shows Hegseth openly admitting to his own criminal behavior. Yes, he is once again incriminating himself. We're going to break it all down. But before we get into that, please leave a like on this video, and if you enjoy the channel and haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button because it really supports our work. Now, before diving into the leaked footage that has Trump panicking and distancing himself from Pete, I want to start with Rachel Maddow's take on what she says is the beginning of the end for the Secretary of Defense.
But there's not a story that I've more desperately wanted to talk to you about since this Post story just blew this unbelievable fact out into public view, and I wonder your thoughts on all of it.
I am disturbed by this, I think, as everybody is. I was taking a step back from this, Nicole. I don't understand why we're going to war with Venezuela. And I'm not sure the administration has even bothered to try to come up with anything even internally coherent in terms of explaining why Trump has proclaimed that we are at war with Venezuela. My sense is that they wanted to use the Alien Enemies Act to illegally arrest and deport people from this country that actually weren't subject to deportation. They decided the Alien Enemies Act was a way to do that. They then realized the Alien Enemies Act required a war, so then they declared a war. Then they needed a reason for the war, so then they reverse engineered some sort of reason for the war. Ostensibly right now, the reason for the war is to stop drug trafficking into the United States. Today, the man convicted of the largest volume of drug trafficking in the history of the United States was just freed from prison by Donald Trump, the former president of Honduras. So clearly, if that's the area of focus, that isn't the justification for this war. So what are we doing there in the first place? Why are we blowing out of the water and killing people in boats with outboard motors, some of which aren't even pointed towards the United States, let alone verified to have drugs on them, let alone even if they were coming to the United States and they had the capacity to reach the United States and they were filled with drugs, why isn't it possible to just interdict them the way that we do with the Coast Guard, where you go and take the drugs and then put those people on trial and investigate and then follow the drugs to their source of origin and then take care of it there? Like, none of this makes any sense. It feels like they bumbled themselves into a profoundly incoherent and illegal situation in which they decided the one true benefit they were getting out of all of it is that they were getting video game style visuals to play on Fox News and put on TikTok. And they liked that. So now they have put this admiral, the commander of Southern Command, every senior officer in that command, and all of the servicemen and women who serve there in the position of potentially being held liable for murder.
It is impossible at this point for Hegseth to try to skirt accountability really in any form from Donald Trump. I don't know why he wouldn't throw Hegseth under the bus at this point. Loyalty to Pete certainly isn't getting you anything, and it is only fracturing the MAGA coalition even more, which I think is what Donald Trump is worrying about most at this point. That, of course, covering up the Epstein files, but he recognizes that even Republican members of the House and Senate want a full investigation into Pete Hegseth, and that is something that he really just can't deal with right now, as his poll numbers hit historic lows. And so Donald Trump has no feeling to Hegseth. There's no reason to stick up for him, especially as a leaked video that has resurfaced is exposing Pete Hegseth, admitting that the crimes Pete Hegseth committed should put him in jail. Amidst all this, a new report from the Washington Post states for Trump, Hegseth's take no prisoners approach is a growing liability. Investigations are mounting into the legality of strikes that have killed scores of people in the waters off Venezuela. The article continues, now, the political price of Mr. Hegseth's tenure at the Pentagon has increased as investigations mount and the legality of strikes that have killed scores of people in the waters of Venezuela. His take no prisoners, leave no survivors approach has led even Republican supporters to demand answers. So far, few have been forthcoming, with claims flying that Mr. Hegseth orders might have led to the commission of war crimes, if not by the secretary, then by senior commanders following his general orders. Mr. Trump sounded over the weekend like he was putting some distance between himself and his defense secretary. Of course, Donald Trump is now distancing himself from Hegseth. There is nothing Trump hates more than being held accountable when things start blowing up in his face. But the way Republicans are trying to spin this Hegseth situation has become absurd. We've seen so many scandals tied to Pete Hegseth that it has practically become its own category. I'm talking about war crimes so casually at this point that even I have to check myself. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to any of this. And honestly, that numbness is something I admit we've slipped into at times, and I'm sorry for that. We need to be sounding the alarm, not in a performative panic, but because Pete Hegseth is a murderer. He killed people. That is the reality. This isn't some partisan football being tossed around to score political points or debate whether MAGA is bad. Pete Hegseth committed murder. He has carried out war crimes, and he will continue unless real consequences are imposed. Trump knows those consequences are inevitable. Either Republicans will be pressured to investigate Hegseth, he'll beg them to defend him, and some will choose to resign instead, or Trump will throw him overboard himself. And even if he does, Democrats will still investigate Pete Hegseth. We need to be clear about what those investigations must look like. Republicans only respond to intimidation, whether it's Trump threatening primaries on Truth Social or the looming threat of a midterm wipeout. Fear is their language because they are insecure and lack any backbone. They need to be pushed in the right direction. But even if Republicans choose cowardice, Democrats must send a message: we do not tolerate war crimes. If that makes us radical liberals because we reject unjustified, indiscriminate killing, then fine, let Republicans try to sell that narrative. And while Jesse Waters cries about Democrats supposedly defending narco-terrorists, Donald Trump literally pardoned a man who brought 400 tons of cocaine into the U.S. and poisoned countless Americans. Let them try to explain that without sounding ridiculous. Democrats also shouldn't shrink back and let Republicans define the debate. We can say both things at once. We oppose war crimes and we oppose drug trafficking. And look, Trump pardoned a drug trafficker. There's no reason to let Republicans pretend they have moral high ground here. People are smarter than that. Just make the argument and make it clear that Republicans will face accountability because this mess is theirs. That's exactly what Adam Schiff was referencing when he talked about the investigations that will be coming from the Senate. Here's what he had to say.
I think it's important to remember that all of this campaign, this military campaign, is unlawful, unconstitutional. Congress has not authorized these actions. There's no imminent threat of invasion or attack from Venezuela. So all of this is unlawful. But if there was an order to deliberately kill these two survivors, that moves unlawful, unconstitutional into the realm of war crimes. And it was interesting watching that press conference with the president and Hegseth, where he appears to read carefully worded language along the lines of the admiral took action to destroy the ship and eliminate the threat. And I think the reason he worded it that way, the reason probably lawyers told him to word it that way, is they want to, I think, try to distinguish, oh no, they weren't trying to kill the survivors, they were just trying to destroy the boat they were on. That's a very flimsy read, I think, to try to hang their hat on. If indeed Hegseth ordered for all these people to be killed, and the admiral acted on that order, whether Hegseth was in the room or he wasn't in the room, and I think you're right to be entirely skeptical of any claim Hegseth makes about what he knew or didn't know. But if he gave the order to kill everyone, then he is responsible for the killing of those survivors and a potential war crime. I think the only way we get to the bottom of this is by analyzing the video, audio if it exists, but also having the admiral testify and others who were present testify so that we can hear firsthand what did they see, what did they know, what were the orders, what action did they take.
Well, we just heard Roger Wicker, the Senate Armed Services Committee chairman, say in no uncertain terms that he and the committee are going to see every bit of video and they're going to hear every bit of audio they're going to get. He's determined to get all of that evidence, and he does have the power to do that.
He certainly has the power to do it, and I hope that he will. I think he seems very serious about it, and I know Roger, I think he's determined. Will the administration provide it? Will they need to somehow subpoena it? Are they willing to go to the mat to fight the administration for that? Are they going to go beyond privately interviewing the admiral? Will they conduct a public hearing? Will they allow the public to see the video and audio so that it's not described to us by third parties? There's a lot of variation in what kind of oversight, how rigorous it can be. If it's going to enjoy the public confidence, I think it has to be done out in the open. And I hope on a bipartisan basis that they will persevere and insist on public hearings and public disclosure of all the evidence.
We need to be firm and unapologetic on this issue. We need to be clear and forceful in calling out Pete Hegseth. Right now, there seems to be some hesitation within the party about pursuing impeachment if he does not resign or get fired. I will not accept that. Pete Hegseth is a criminal. He should be impeached. I reject the notion that we should avoid doing what's right because it might not be the most politically convenient path or because there are other issues to focus on. We must do what is correct. If Pete Hegseth broke the law and committed impeachable offenses, he must face impeachment. It's that simple. And that is exactly what we will say on this show. If you want to support this work, as always, you can hit the subscribe button and leave a like on this video. If you've stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.